Okay, so what you're watching here is one of the franchises that David and I had chosen to do this year. We had a bunch of them lined up for this horror month, and obviously we didn't get to finish them. And I'm bringing it to you so you can actually see what we were doing and what this was going to become.
You thought the year was scary so far. You haven't seen anything yet.
Okay, welcome back, horror fans, to Horror Month 2020. What is this? Horror Month 2020. That's what it is. And once again, we're watching a film or reviewing a film that neither one of us has seen. They said it came out in theaters, but I don't think it came out in theaters anywhere near here, like in the U.S. at all.
So this is sort of like the Creepshow 3 of house movies. I'm like, they made a Creepshow 3? What? But, you know, this is actually in this box set here from Arrow. It's a really great box set that we got. It has all 4 house movies in there.
And this is House 4, The Repossession, is actually the tagline on it, but pretty much everybody just calls it House 4.
I would call it the 4th story. I mean, they should have had the 4th story on the house. Added the 4th story.
I don't know, the way this ends up, it's more like the basement.
Okay, so House 4, I guess they decided to, I guess House 3 was successful enough. Here comes Sean S. Cunningham again. It's like, you know what? Let's go back to the original house and make a house that actually has something to do with house for once. There's a crazy idea.
And he actually talks about this when we get to the extras that will explain it more, but he actually talked about that, is that he did want to actually come back to the original film. And the guy that he hired to direct the film also said the same thing. He's like, well, we should bring this back to the original house and make it more like that. So what they did was hire William Katt back to come back and play Roger Cobb from the first film. But they changed his story around. Now he's not in Vietnam. But he has this house that one of his family left to him, and he inherits the house. So, but he can't bring himself to destroy it or get rid of it, and it's a house like right out in the middle of the desert. Like there's nothing around him at all. It's not in the suburbs like the first one was, and it's just him out there, and for some reason he knows this Indian shaman.
Yeah.
Which made this movie a little bit like Poltergeist 2.
So, when you jump a shark in a movie, you either get one or two things. You introduce a baby. You got to put a baby in there. I mean, that's one of the worst things you can do. Or have some sort of weird Indian burial ground. I mean, those are the two things you usually go to when you have nothing else to talk about in a horror film.
And see, the other thing with this movie is there's like, I don't know, 6 stories going on here. There's the whole house story with Roger Cobb, and he inherits the house. Then there's this the underlining thing is there's this Indian burial ground, and there's this great seal.
Yeah, I don't even think it was an Indian burial ground. I think it was an Indian sacred seal, because they didn't really explain it. I still don't understand it. Not that it really matters, but you know, I liked the originality of the first and second house because they were fun. There were comedies mixed in with horror, and they had the Twilight Zone feeling to it, and they were original. And if they had just stuck to that formula, they would probably still be making houses now. We'd probably be on like House 10 by now. But they didn't. They made House 3, which had nothing to do with house, and then they tried to make this thing into the first 2 houses, which they lost everything that made the first 2 houses, except for a few things in here. Because I'm going to bust it out, Vince. You ready? I'm busting it out.
Bust it out.
I'm your pizza man. I'm your pizza man. I'm your favorite pizza man. Hey, I'm your pizza man. I mean,
that's pretty much this movie's claim to fame, is that song.
I'm your pizza man. Anyway, so that was fun. And if they had more stuff like that throughout this whole movie, it would have been a much better film. But they were trying to take it more serious again. And it's if they're trying to make House again, if you watch the second one, it's like you're watching it on drugs. I mean, it's like this weird drug-induced, crazy, weird thing that makes no sense that I loved. Take all that away and then try to put some seriousness in there with a singing pizza, and you have House 4.
I was going to say, this is more like after the drugs start to wear off.
Yeah, and then the drugs start coming back a little bit, and then they leave again.
And I go, oh my God.
Story-wise, yeah, Cobb is in this for about 20 seconds, and he gets killed. So his wife and now her daughter, who's in a wheelchair, end up moving back into the house. And I couldn't tell. Is this the same house from the first one? I couldn't really tell.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, they've been 4 different houses.
I forgot what the house looked like in the first one. And when it very first started, I'm not gonna lie, because it was out in the middle of the desert, I was thinking, oh, House 2, they're in the Wild West. This is gonna be kind of cool, but because it looked like it was like an old Wild West town with nothing around it, and they have a house sitting there. And I literally thought they were gonna do something with the Wild West from the second film, but nope, it was just in the middle of nowhere. Makes no sense anyway. And so she moves in there with her daughter, and all of a sudden this house cleaner shows up, housekeeper, and that made a little sense. And someone walks into your house. Oh no, I'm here to clean your house. Oh, fine, whatever. But I don't know. And then you get the side story, which is so weird and so out of place in this film that it felt like a different movie completely.
Yeah, like I said, there's like 6 stories going on here, and you mentioned House 2, and yeah, I kind of thought a little bit along the same lines, like, okay, well, being out in the desert, maybe they're just going to have a little bit of the Western kind of thing, maybe it's going to have something to do with the second story, but no. and I think that's kind of what the director was trying to do with this, is just kind of put maybe House 1 and House 2 kind of together, but it doesn't go anywhere. That's pretty much all that gives you the idea that maybe this is kind of a Western, is that there's an Indian and a great seal, and they're in the desert, and so you think, okay, maybe they're going to have the crystal skull back into this, or what are they doing with this? And no, instead they go off onto this thing with Roger Cobb's stepbrother, that is something that they didn't explain in this, but later on explained in the extras, is that he is actually supposed to be a pornographer.
A who?
And he works for some guy that does toxic waste dumping, and he's a little short midget guy, and who has something wrong with his throat or something, and it produces one of the grossest things I've ever probably seen in a long time.
Yeah, it was pretty disgusting. I mean, it didn't make any sense. And these people, they felt like cartoon characters. Like, here you had like I liked the actress in this. I thought she did a really good job. I thought she acted really good. That whole side of the story was pretty good. And then you get to his brother and these weird criminals, and it's like Looney Tunes. It's like, what's going on over there?
It literally felt like something out of Police Academy or something.
I don't know. It was almost like a Toxic Avenger type of film, like a Trauma type of movie.
And kind of the trauma, toxic trauma. What was it? Trauma. What was that?
Toxic Avenger?
Oh, I know Toxic Avenger. There was one that they called it It was like the fourth movie of Toxic Avenger. They had Trauma Taxi or Toxie Trauma or something like that.
Whatever it was really bad, and that it was really bad.
So, yeah, this movie just, I don't know, it's a mess. That's it's really a mess.
There's things in the movie that I do like. Like I said, I liked the female lead. I thought she was okay. The daughter was somewhat okay. That whole story, that part of this, what was going on, and the thing in the basement, which I never really explained. I still don't really know what it was. It was like a water geyser or something. I have no idea. And but then you get to the Looney Tunes part of it, the Toxic Avenger part of it, and it doesn't go with the rest of the story. And it was like, I really don't know. I don't know how to explain this movie, really.
And you mentioned, of course, the cleaner, the person who comes into, our housekeeper that comes into the house, is played by Denny Dillon, who used to be on Saturday Night Live way back. So with the first couple of films, they had, of course, George Wendt, and then they had John Ratzenberger, you know, both from Cheers come in, and this time you got someone that's kind of the B actors on Saturday Night Live.
Well, getting into the extras here in a minute, I mean, even the director says there was no point to the movie. He directed the movie because it was given to him, and there was he says it's a crappy movie. I mean, he even says it himself, it's a crappy movie. So, there was no point to this. I mean, they could have tried a revived House and made a brand new one, and I hope at some point, someday, I think it's probably dead franchise now, but, thank God. But, I don't know. I don't ever see House coming back, unless as maybe an HBO special or a TV show or something. But as for the last House here on Horror Month, I'm giving it a 2 out of 5.
So yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was really hoping to see, especially with William Katt coming back, I was really hoping to see what they did with the first House movie, and I was hoping that would be a return to that, or return to at least the formula of it. And I think they gave it their best shot, I guess. You know, it seems like they were trying to do that. It just never really happened. But when they got into the whole toxic waste thing and the police academy goons, you know, it was just terrible. It just didn't work. None of it made any sense, and the movie's just falling apart. So I would actually give this movie a 2 out of 5.
And now, let's get into the actually entertaining part of this movie. That's the extras. Okay, so there's only one extra here on this disc. Actually, there's two. There's commentary, and then there's the extra on here. And the extra on here, I thought, was better than the actual movie.
And you know what? I would agree with you. It was very much more entertaining, and what's really funny was to hear the director talk about the film, and like he came on there, and especially with the commentary, because it's him in the commentary, and he's what made the commentary actually entertaining. Because he talks about like Joe Bob Briggs, who's now doing what, the drive-in it's called?
The Last Drive-In?
Yeah, The Last Drive-In on Shudder. Used to have a show on TNT or USA or something like that, and he would show movies like this. on his show, and at one of the viewings, he actually gave it a glowing review and said it was 3.5 stars out of 5 or something like that, out of 4. So he actually enjoyed the film.
I don't know. He must have been drinking heavy back then.
While watching the movie, this is something I noticed that they never really talked about. There's a scene where she goes down into the basement. The mom goes down into the basement, finds the seal down there, and then comes up and she has a flashlight, and the flashlight explodes, and she comes back up out of the basement, and she goes through the kitchen. As she goes through the kitchen, there's a person sitting at a table.
Yeah, I remember watching the movie, and Becky's like, "Did you see that person sitting there?" And I said, "Yeah, who was that?" And we sat there and rewound it, and we're like, "Yeah, there's someone sitting." I mean, they were obviously sitting in the at a table in the kitchen, and they're right in frame. They weren't just kind of a little bit; they were right in frame. I'm like,
And the funny part is, they mention nothing about it. Even in the commentary, he mentions absolutely nothing about it. Doesn't say a word about it.
Yeah, it wasn't just a small flaw. That was somebody sitting in the kitchen while they're just filming. I mean, it was a really weird scene, too. It was really bizarre. Now, if there was more stuff like that in the movie, it would have been a better film. And the funny part about this whole making of is William Katt's on there, and he was just cracking me up. He's like, I don't really remember this movie. I think I was there for one day, and I was in a car, and I think I was in the back seat of the car, and that's about all I remember. It's funny. He's like, he didn't even remember filming it.
What's even more weird, or would really blow your mind, is all the other people say, well, William Katt was back, and that was great to have him back. He was back for about 2 or 3 days.
That's what they kept saying, 2 or 3 days, and he's like, I think I was there about half a day, a day and a half, and I was sitting in the back seat of a car. I don't remember my role or what I was doing in the movie.
And that was one of the things, is like, they had to hurry up and film some stuff with him because he was only going to be there for 2 or 3 days. But according to him, according to William Katt, he's only there a day.
And the director on here is really funny. He's a really good, funny guy. And, I mean, he owns up to the movie sucking. And it was good to see. It was good to see somebody like, well, they offered me this movie, I took it, and I knew it was going to suck, and it pretty much sucked, but I did it anyway, you know. So it was actually refreshing to see somebody admit that a movie that they made sucked.
He was also trying to peddle himself and say, you know, if there's anything out there that anybody wants him to direct, he's willing to direct it.
But it was a really great making of it. It really was. It was a lot of fun, a lot of entertaining. I enjoyed it. This is probably one of my favorite extras so far.
Right. And one other thing with this extra is they had Sean S. Cunningham on this behind the scenes, and he actually explained it better as to why this one is House 4 and the last one was the horror show.
Yeah, I thought that was weird too. It's like, why wait until House 4 to explain House 3? Made no sense.
It's actually the way this extra starts out, is he's explaining that, and I almost thought, okay, am I watching the extras to House 3? Because he starts talking about the horror show and not House 4. But then he finally explained that this is House 4, and there wasn't really a House 3 because it was the horror show. And the other thing he said, he actually, we kind of mentioned this in House 3 review, was that he kind of said, blatantly said, you know, I kind of wish I would have stuck with the formula with the House films. That I would have stuck with everything because of the way it all turned out. But he didn't, so oh well.
Yeah, and again, you know, I loved the first two, and I wish they could kind of revive this, but I think it's too late. I think this is too old of a franchise now, and it wasn't a big franchise to start with. They just kind of somehow kept making these films somehow, and there was not a huge fan base for House, I don't think.
I think House 3 actually killed it, is what it was.
Yeah, I think if they had made another one that was similar to 1 or 2, like I said, that we might have had 10 houses by now, but 3 kind of killed it. and 4 kind of just killed it more.
We've kind of mixed this extra in with the commentary, and I have to say about the commentary is that it actually was really entertaining because it's the director. And he, at one point in the movie, at the whole Mr. Grosso point, where he's talking about his best friend, the little guy in the chair, that's getting the mucus sucked out of him. He said at that point that Steven Spielberg and George Lucas had seen the movie, and they came and talked to him about it and said, yeah, we really liked it. We enjoyed it. And the other person they showed it to was James Cameron. So in the middle of the commentary, he calls James Cameron. And he asked him, so what do you think about, we're watching House 4, what do you think about the phlegm scene? And James Cameron says it right then and there. It's the most gross, disgusting scene he's ever saw, ever on a film, ever.
Well, there you go.
So there's proof that it was a disgusting scene.
It was pretty disgusting. I'll admit, it was pretty gross.
But of course, the big thing was that they kept talking about the Pizza Man song.
and we got to mention that Kane Hodder was the face of the pizza.
Right. So Kane Hodder actually got to show his face again in one of these films, and he was the pizza. He was the human pizza.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up here. Yeah. So with that, we have finished another franchise here for 2020 Horror Month, and I hope you've been enjoying these franchises, because even though some of these haven't been great films, it's still been fun to go through them and experience them for the first time. And we take the good with the bad on here, and unfortunately the last one wasn't great. But our next franchise might be 1,000 times better. You don't know, because I don't know what it is.
I have no idea. I don't know where we're going with this.
I don't know either. Well, we'll find out tomorrow here on the Horror Show, which is what, Vince?
The Repossession?
Okay, I'll take that. Repossession. 4th story. Horror Show. Horror Month. Whatever.
Horror Month 2020, brought to you by Box Office Maniacs. Yeah, we've been doing this for 12 years. Can you believe that?
Yeah, and we've never seen this movie.
12 years.
12 years. Never seen this movie. Never reviewed this movie.
Probably a good reason why.
All right, I gotta turn this off. I can't talk anymore. Oh. I'm dripping with sweat. That's the longest freaking review so far for Horror Month.